Have you ever thought about dropping out of therapy because it's too hard? This is actually a really common problem, and people often don't know what to do when they start to feel this way. It's normal to feel like therapy is hard, but if it's getting too hard, instead of dropping out, there are several things that you can do so that you can figure out how to work through it and keep making the progress that you need to. That's what we're going to talk about today, so stick with us and we'll walk you through it.
Any stories shared in this podcast have had names and details changed for the confidentiality of clients. Any resemblance to someone real is coincidental.
Hello everybody, thank you for joining us for today's video. Today we are going to talk about what to do when therapy feels like it's getting too hard. I think this is something that we want to hear from people, because that means they're being communicative. But how do you respond to a client, or how would you respond to someone watching if they feel like therapy is just too hard for them?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would say totally normal, right? Like, that's the whole point of going to therapy, is working through the things that are hard. And so if you get to a point where you feel like it's getting too hard, that's not necessarily something that's abnormal. So that's the first thing that I would say. Next, after that, I would say it's a good idea to explore why.
Yeah, that's when we were talking about this in preparation for this, my thought process was, therapy does have a tendency to be hard, but I think there are some strategies that can be done to make it less difficult, but I need to be aware that it's becoming difficult, because if I then can figure out, okay, what's making this particular thing hard, I'd rather try and problem solve it than have a client disappear, right? And yes, I'm probably notorious for telling my clients that the why doesn't matter. But in some situations, if I can figure out the why, then I can build a different strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But it's not uncommon for therapy to be hard. It's just not.
Well, and I would say there are lots of reasons why it could start to feel too hard. So some of the things that I hear most commonly from people is that the emotions that come up in therapy feel too hard for them to deal with, either in the room or afterward. So those are two really common things. Another thing that I hear pretty commonly is that, like, so many things in their life are kind of blowing up. And so then coming in here and having to talk about and work on some of the deeper issues, that feels too hard when your life is in too much chaos. So those are a couple of things that I hear. Is there anything else that you guys hear that people say is too hard or makes therapy too hard? What's the why?
Well, I try to normalize, like you said, but I try to take almost like I don't know what you call it, a bird's eye view or a higher level approach to saying, like, okay, so if you're going to come to my office for an hour every single week, and we're going to talk about not all the good things that are happening, but all potentially the worst moments of your life, why wouldn't it be hard? It'd be really weird if it wasn't hard. And I try and just make that kind of shift in thinking of course it's hard. Like, if it wasn't hard, there would be, one, no value in it, but also, like, I'd be more concerned if you came to therapy and were sharing difficult things in your life and you left like, this is great, this is fun.
Yeah, I think that therapy being hard is progress, and if we talk about it, I can frame it that way, and I can walk clients through why this is progress. But if we don't have that conversation and I never know, then a client is more just likely to drop out, at which point we don't make the progress. So I use it as kind of like a normalizing strategy. In your situation, it's like, yeah, well, no duh, like, this is supposed to be hard, right?
Yeah, you could probably sum up like 50 of our videos by saying, be honest with your therapist, it really helps.
Right, so maybe the first thing that you do is just be straight up with your therapist.
Yeah.
Hey, look, this is feeling too hard for me. And spend a little bit of time exploring why, what it is about therapy that's feeling too hard. So when you guys have had people come in and they decide therapy's too hard or feeling too hard, and you talk through it, what are some of the solutions to that you maybe have come up with?
My first thought always goes to, I don't know, I feel like in my experience, the most common reason that I think my clients feel like therapy is hard is because they're just uncomfortable with, like, getting into the not fun emotions of whatever happens in their life. And so once I know that, though, my go-to is, like, that's great. Now let's shore up some other skills. Let's teach you some other things to regulate those emotions so that going there doesn't feel so scary and hard. So again, we have to know that it's the why of why it's hard, and then from there I feel like it's just a matter of, okay, let's strengthen everything around that weak, scary spot so that you can go do it, and it might still be hard, but you have more tools to handle that hard.
Right. Kind of the skill building, right?
Yeah.
Like helping people build the skills so that they can handle whatever those hard emotions are. So that's one thing, like the one thing that you could do.
One of the strategies that I try to use when this is brought up is recreating or restructuring the format of my sessions, right? So when I have clients come in, I purposefully will try and engage in 5 to 7 to 10 minutes of just socialization, right? Tell me about the week, what's been going on, tell me about work. And I spend 5 to 10 minutes to get that first portion of the session to just feel like a normal conversation with a normal person. I do that purposefully. There's an intent behind that. After that first 5 to 10 minutes, then we start moving into the bulk of, okay, give me an update on what we've been working on, how did homework go, etc. That's another 5 to 10 minute journey. And then I like to spend a chunk of the session doing the work, and then maybe the last 5 to 10 minutes doing like a closure. If I know that therapy feels too hard with that particular protocol, then I start switching up the protocol of how I do the structure of the session. Because if I know that this certain structure is hard, I can rearrange anything in any way, shape, or form. And so I think one strategy is just rearranging the structure of the session. And it might be removing a specific piece completely and putting something new in there, right?
I also think EMDR does a good job of that framework-wise of like, I try to apply it even to not EMDR clients to always ground before the end of the session. Not necessarily, it can be through like an actual grounding exercise, but sometimes it's just through asking them what they're going to go do after session, right? Bringing them back to, yeah, we've been talking about your past and what's going on and all these stressful things in your life, but like what's happening right now? Whether they realize it or not, I try to like redirect what's happening to just now.
Bring it back. Yeah. I think that something other people might not know too is that there are a lot of different techniques that your therapist can use to take some of the intensity out of it. Now, this doesn't mean therapy will just not be hard, because it needs to still be hard, but it needs to be not so hard that you can't tolerate it. So some of the things that I've done with people in session, and sometimes these things are more around like trauma processing. Let's say you're coming in and you know you've been through these couple of things and you need to work through them. That can feel totally overwhelming. Well, we can make small goals with that, and we can say, okay, well, what if we dip our toes in just this one and we do it just for the next 3 weeks, and then we take a break from that for a while and see how you feel. Nothing says that if you start on something you have to just like completely finish it right then, or that you can't take a little bit longer to do it. And there are different strategies in session that we can use too that will kind of like plunge you in the deep end a little bit more, and other things that really are more like dipping your toes in the water. But we can't use those if we don't know your level of distress, right? So again, like there are so many things that your therapist can do if they know that's what they need to be doing.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, so be communicative with your therapist about what you're feeling and how things are going. And kind of going on with what you said, maybe like check your expectations a little bit. Be willing to slow things down if needed, or take maybe a different route to your destination, or jump in the deep end sometimes if needed.
Right.
But if you're open during that process, I think that's the conclusion, is that that can be worked through and with.
Right. There's lots of techniques, there's problem solving, there's skills we can help you build, and maybe even focusing on some of those short-term goals. All of those things can work, so communicate, figure it out.
Okay. Well, thank you for everybody for joining us for today's video. Hopefully you found something helpful, and we will see you on the next video.
Thanks.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. We've got other videos for you to check out and more exciting things coming soon, so thank you.